Thank you, Veronica, and welcome everybody. I just wanted to start out by talking about how this project came about. And that's funny. And as you know, if you've been with us for the last couple of years, CAPE and CAPE Technical Assistance Project have been doing research and organizing projects around the state priorities. And this particular project is really focused on learner transition. How are we transitioning our students to college? How are we transitioning them to employment? And it's also about program development. So so those are the two focuses for us today. IET has also been around for especially WIOA 2 funded programs for the last several years. However, especially IET as it relates to ESL programs with the IELCE programs for our ESL students. So our goal with this project and research was to build awareness in our non-WIOA CAP programs about IET and to hear from practitioners around the state about their successes and their challenges with developing and implementing IET programs. So that's what we've really captured today with the this webinar and the document that has been made public to you. I want to take just a moment to thank our advisors who helped out with the project. We had several, so it included advisors from CASAS, from CalPro, AIR, also the California Department of Education, Adult Education Office, and the Chancellor's Office. And we also had 3 field practitioners with experience delivering IET who sat on our advisory in the development of this report. So thank you so much. I also wanted to extend a thank you to all of our practitioners that we were able to interview, or Jenny and Peter were able to interview, and to the all of the participants in the listening sessions. The expertise and experience and knowledge that we were able to gain from those sessions was invaluable in the development of this report. And then I would be remiss if I didn't thank Jenny and Peter for their work on this project. They have been with us for a couple of years working on various projects and always easy to work with and very professional in what they do. So we just appreciate being able to work with them. With that, I want to thank you for joining us today and hope that you are able to benefit from hearing all of the voices of our practitioners in the field, of our students' voices, and I look forward to seeing how we use this moving forward. Passing over to Jenny, I think.
Actually, I think I may open it up.
Oh, sorry, Peter.
It's okay. Well, thank you both, Veronica and Renee, for the great lead in for this webinar. I'll just say back that we've really enjoyed working with you for the last 2 years. Jenny and I are High Road Alliance. We're a consulting firm that, as our moniker says, we really focus on equitable career pathways. And in that work, we've worked a lot with the adult ed system, but also with community colleges, with a number of unions lately, and building apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship on-ramps to really good jobs. Also workforce boards and community partners. As Renee mentioned, we've really been very fortunate actually to be able to approach this work by listening to many of you probably who are on this webinar, in terms of listening to practitioners talk about the great work you're doing out there. And our job is often to absorb that and then put it out in these briefs and things like this webinar today. Maybe that's enough on HRA. Jenny, do you want to talk about our agenda today?
Sure. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Renee and Veronica. It's such an honor to be here today. And thank you, as Peter said, thank you to all of you participating today who were part of this research project, and to others who come with your curiosity and your interest in this topic. Welcome. We're really delighted to share with you today what came out of this project, which was, as Renee described, a chance to really listen to people who are involved in IET programs around the state. And our agenda today gives us a chance to say a little bit briefly about what is integrated education and training, just a very quick background, and then share with you some highlights of this brief that we worked on. This came out of, as was mentioned, 13 different interviews. This was with consortium leads, program directors, instructors, also listening sessions. There were 5 of those that involved 47 people with different perspectives on IET coming to share and learn. In all, we talked to representatives of 27 different IET providers. That included 27, there were 21 providers that were adult schools, 13 that were community colleges. And then we actually talked to 7 programs that involved those together. So thank you to all of those who we will see reflected in this. And then a highlight today is going to be the panel discussion. And we're going to try to get to that, leave at least half our time for that discussion and dialogue, which will really bring to life some of the things we learned through this research. And we're going to leave time at the end for questions. So please think of those questions. If you have questions as we go, we also encourage you to put those in the chat box. We'd be very open to considering those and seeing if we can answer some as we go along.
Okay, very briefly, our objectives for this webinar is, again, just to sort of have a collective definition of what is IET and its potential, what it can add to the field and particularly to our students. To share in a very high level sort of our findings and recommendation from our brief that we put together. And again, as Jenny mentioned, to have a lively discussion with our panelists and hopefully have time for you also to interact with them at the end of this webinar. We want this to be live action and of value to all of you who are listening. Next slide.
So this is going to be a quick little intro for those who might need the quick definition. We're going to fly through this part a little bit, but just to give you a taste. So IET is defined in the Workforce Opportunity and Innovation Act, which was signed in 2014. And California has been operating IET programs since then, really delivering on the vision of WIOA, which is to offer adult education and literacy concurrently and contextually with workforce preparation. Workforce training in a specific occupation or occupational cluster, and with these goals of educational and career advancement. So in California, we use our WIOA Title II funds. These are integrated English literacy and civics education dollars that are specifically set aside for programs that are combined with IET, with integrated education and training. This is a current priority of the California Department of Education and of the Chancellor's Office. So it's an opportunity for collaboration across our major systems, providing this kind of education to adults. And it's now there are many programs receiving these IELCE funds who participated in our interviews. So we hear a lot of their perspectives as we share findings with you today. It's worth noting that IELCE is one of multiple funding sources that many of these programs use. So WIOA Title II has really lifted up IET for our adult education field, and those who are using other funds are sometimes finding ways to deliver on the IELCE vision, but doing it in different ways, a whole variety of different ways. California promotes a model that meets the requirements of IELCE. And so we'll see examples of strong programs that meet these kind of quality criteria for IELCE. You will see we talked to some programs that are not IELCE funded and that kind of take other creative approaches. But it is important to note that, that California has defined a model based on the IELCE definition, which really is a quality IET model. We point you here to just one of many resources that are out there. We're not going to give you an exhaustive overview of IET. There are some great resources that have been produced. This one by the Center for Law and Social Policy that really break down the WIOA regulations, give examples, help us to understand how to deliver on that WIOA vision.
So again, very briefly, sort of key elements that are present in different variations in all of these IET programs is, at the core of it is collaboration. And, the classic model is two teachers teaching together, but we really want to note that it's not just the teachers who are working together, which is of course very important, but also student services, counselors, administration, and even workforce partners. So it's really a team effort with different variations on how that looks. IET programs that are successful really are responsive both to student needs and also to employer hiring needs, so that there really is a demand on the other end of these programs. All of these programs focus a lot on building quality curriculum, that it's about integration and making it, of course, relevant to the students. And I think one thing that sets IET programs apart is that even though you may have a CTE program and an ESL or GED, that you have a single set of learning objectives, and that's a lot what the teachers work out together. And in California, there's really two models of integrated teaching, which is either co-teaching or having two teachers in the classroom, or alternating teaching where you may have not together but sequential or at different times, but the content is integrated. Next.
So this is just a summary of IET in California today. The data that we have shows that the $15 million in these WIOA Title II Section 243 funds that are allocated for IELCE programs are going to 112 different educational agencies. And we were just talking with one of our students who's here today to present, saying, you're part of a program that has all these fancy acronyms and it's all over the state. And many of our students don't realize that this is part of what they're sitting in the classroom appreciating is part of a quite large statewide effort. There are over 14,000 learners that are enrolled in IELCE programs in California. 2,000 of them are specifically in complete IET programs. Others are enrolled in a piece of those, or one of the elements of them might not be fully enrolled. But we have many of these students receiving COAPs, which are civic objective and additional assessment plans. This is California's means of assessing and tracking student progress in these programs. And as you see in the last bullet here, these programs are using a diversity of different funding streams to support the instruction and student services. And that includes CAPE dollars and community college apportionment. WIOA Title I is our other public workforce funds. So these are all going to support the growth of IET.
And I'm not going to read this whole slide to you, but I think, fundamentally, particularly, I think, in this sort of post-pandemic period where there's an incredible number of people who have been dislocated or have left jobs and need to get back in the workforce, but do not have a lot of time to be in long training programs, that IET both is an equity strategy in terms of really dealing with a lot of barriers, but simultaneously an acceleration strategy, meaning people can get to occupationally related training much faster with the IET approach. And again, it's a chance along with adult dual enrollment, which we also were looking at the same time, an opportunity to really get into college level and career training at the college level from the adult education level much quicker. And of course, you know, all we hear from employers is we're desperate for workers. And I'll just add that a lot of the workforce where people have bilingual skills, and a lot of our immigrant students actually are a big plus for a lot of the employers out there. Next.
All right, and our last slide before we get into a quick summary of the research brief is just to point out that not all IET programs look alike. Like Peter mentioned, there are different models of teaching in ways that integrate the basic skills and the career education, either co-teaching or alternating teaching. We saw very different roles assigned to adult schools and community colleges and in collaboration, or roles being taken on solely by adult schools or solely by community colleges. There's a lot of variation there. We saw IET programs really across industries and occupations, and the report includes an interesting table that sort of maps out all the different industries and occupations of just those programs that we talked to. And then, as mentioned, just a huge number of different ways of creatively funding the many elements of IET.
So we are going to jump into a very, very brief overview of some of what we heard in all these many listening sessions and interviews, and from our advisory committee as well. I'll just say that number one, of course, we encourage you to read the brief, because in the brief is a sort of a more substantial discussion of each one of these elements. And we also give concrete examples. I'll just say that in terms of these different topics, that Jenny and I are very lucky to hear all these incredibly creative solutions that all of you out in the field have come up with to make all of this work. And again, we'll hear more that will make this all come alive from our panelists in a few minutes. These are the 6 areas that are in the brief. We'll go over these briefly, and again, we want to not just talk at you as we go through this. If you either have questions or even examples you'd like to share, please put them in the chat. Okay, I guess I have this slide as well.
Sure.
I mean, one thing that was clear, obviously, when we're talking to all these different people, is that these partnerships are really consortium-wide partnerships. And what we mean, obviously, and I probably don't have to explain that to this audience, but the consortium really involves the community college and the adult education programs, and some even involve other community partners. That it's about integrating basic skills and CTE instruction, and in many cases, linking adult education and post-secondary community college. And again, we can't emphasize enough the core element of partnership in terms of just building trust, really establishing the roles. And as a dean who used to pay for this, you have to build in staff time, not just to plan the program, but as you go, as the ongoing collaboration. And as we heard over and over again, there's many technical challenges that come up, and it's the partnership that really is the way in which you address all of these challenges as they arise.
Mm-hmm. I see we have one question already in the chat. And this is, we've started to organize student visits to local employers. Our challenge is getting the students to sign up and attend. Do you have any ideas for incentives? I think that might be a good question to pose to our panel a little bit later. We're going to touch on student recruitment and retention, which was a huge theme in the interviews, and maybe there will be some thoughts there. And so hopefully that will be addressed as we go along. Thanks for the question, though. We encourage you, send those our way at any time. Teacher recruitment and training was definitely another theme, a topic often brought up by programs, both in terms of the challenges it posed, but also the creative solutions that programs have been able to find. Many cited the challenges of recruiting IET teachers and were able to articulate some of the reasons why it's hard. In addition to just the regular challenges of finding strong teachers, there were challenges named related to IET because it takes sometimes extra time, certainly extra time for teacher collaboration. Often class times and locations have to be very carefully coordinated so that the different elements of an IET program can sync up, and that can pose challenges for teachers adjusting their own schedules. The activity of co-teaching is not for everyone. Some people were very clear that they didn't enjoy that as much as it might take to really effectively co-teach. It takes some giving up of control in the classroom, and as a teacher myself, I can say that could be hard. And so that's not for everyone. It's not every personality that enjoys IET. There were also just very practical reasons given around the adult ed CTE credential requirement for a CTE teacher, or lower wages paid for adult ed instructors as compared to community college, and some of the sort of practical details that come up when trying to design these programs. The creative approaches were inspiring, though. There were examples of basic skills teachers going and getting CTE credentials so that they could essentially co-teach in their own classroom. There were also examples of blending funding. IELCE has very specific requirements, and some were able to blend funding in ways that brought in the CTE piece in what would have otherwise been more of a basic skills environment. So contract education was used to allow involving employers, trainers to participate in some way in a program, or to fund professional experts from the field to participate. The topic of teacher training was really an important one, and many cited the immense value we have in California of the offering of the CalPro IET implementation clinic. So we encourage everyone who can to participate with your teams in that deep work session. There were also many programs that designed their own training, either in supplement to or on their own, apart from the CalPro training. And we're often supporting cross training that was really allowing a kind of homegrown training of teachers. And most certainly they emphasize the importance of paying for teacher collaboration time.
Okay, and just on that last slide, I would just add for all the community college people out there that there's some great examples of using strong workforce money to pay for some of this development, because it's, that's a fund that you can tap for this activity. As was noted by our audience member who brought up the issue about student recruitment, it was a theme that we heard over and over again from all the people we spoke with, that in some way, and we really look forward to hearing again from the participants on the panel, particularly the students, like why, it's a bigger commitment of time. What do you mean you're going to have to take 2 classes instead of 1? So it's really important, the marketing and the messaging of what's the value add for the participants. And the marketing can be through the adult school, the college, employers, and I think to really educate your own staff, the people who the students first encounter, whether it's intake people, counselors, transition specialists, for people to really understand what's the value of this so they can explain that then to students. Again, the student support staff play an incredibly important role in terms of addressing barriers, navigating, figuring out schedules, and also there's been a real emphasis on ESL and IET, but there's also some terrific examples of linking CTE and high school diploma or high school equivalent classes, since, a lot of the jobs we're talking about, particularly apprenticeship, you need a high school diploma to be able to get those jobs. So this again is a chance to kind of link those and accelerate people's access to those opportunities. Next.
I see a little dialogue going in the chat in response to the question about incentivizing students to participate in employer activities. Thank you, Amy, for being there. Amy has such a wealth of experience. The CalPro IET clinic is a chance to interact with Amy and get a lot of her wisdom. There are some good tips showing up in the chat box, so thank you for that. I want to note on this next slide the importance of retention support for IET students, and this was brought up repeatedly by our interviewees and in our listening sessions. These are often challenging classes for students. Typically, they attract students who are very work oriented and maybe already working, already supporting family and juggling school at the same time. And often they demand an extra amount of time to cover both the basic skills, the ESL, and also the career content. So they're demanding in a number of different ways. And here's where we heard a real focus on models that are very student-centered, very responsive to what the program can learn about what will work for students in terms of length of the class, blending what might be more flexible if it's online, but also with the support needed and the in-person time needed to really be a strong educational program, sort of the proper blending of online and hybrid options, stipending, recognizing the financial barriers that can be posed for some students, and really emphasizing the knowledge, the wisdom that comes in the adult education world around what is high quality instruction for working adults. And we heard a lot about the benefits of teaching basic skills in ways that are contextualized and hands-on and that are presenting really practical language. Also around retention support, we can't overlook the importance of support services, and many programs are really integrating strong student supports to help students with transitions, but also just kind of support, make sure barriers don't come up along the way.
Okay, also another theme was really what are the necessary student support services to connect students to work? And I just wanted to sort of emphasize the last bullet first, which is many of our students, at least those who have right to work documentation, are eligible for the workforce system. We owe a Title I funds, which also particularly for people who are low income or dislocated or unemployed, can help with childcare, help transportation, and career counseling. But for all, that it's really important to, number one, can have the employer relationships in place that make sure that the curriculum that's being put together is relevant to the demand. And that goes sometimes beyond the teacher partnerships. That's where the other staff at the school or the college can help with the connections they might have to the workforce world. And maybe that's enough. I don't want to go on and on about this, but just it's really important that we help the students, and it may well be some transition specialists in certain consortia are also connected to this workforce side and help people with the workforce connection as well.
Mm-hmm. I think the first bullet on this slide is really just acknowledging a challenge that we heard quite a bit, is that many people who are themselves venturing into running IET programs are acknowledging that they have limited resources or expertise around the connections to work. And often these aren't the first pieces to fall into place when an IET program is planned or launched. And yet we really heard across the board a lot of commitment to making that connection to work. It really is the kind of driving motivation behind IET programs. So an area that definitely merits attention. Many programs, though, are also supporting students to connect not only to work, but to further training. And I think evaluations of IET programs nationally show that not high numbers typically do take that path to college, higher, more advanced certificates and degrees, although they may get a certificate through an IET program. And we heard some wonderful examples of programs that are supporting those transitions to continued training if that's a goal of the student. So there are programs that are linking their IET program to a college pathway in a really intentional way, often with ongoing ESL support, acknowledging that a student may need that continued support even after they exit the bridge program. There were examples of IET programs as the first college course on a CTE pathway, so involving the college already at that step. And sometimes awarding a certification already, and that can be a real win at the end of an IET program. Credit by exam was another way that the programs were supporting that transition to credit-bearing college work. And again, the important role of transition specialists, we like to always remember.
Okay, well, we hit our target of getting here before 12:40. I see. Thank you, Mandali. She put the link to the brief in the chat. We'll just close that sort of didactic session with just saying, please take a look at the brief, and we would welcome your ongoing feedback. And this is clearly a hot topic that we're going to be discussing for a number of years in California. I'm happy to then transition to our panel discussion, and people can introduce themselves more fully, but I'll just say we have Paige Endo from the Mount Diablo Adult Education Program, Francisco Narciso from LA Unified Adult Ed, and then we're very fortunate to have two students who are actively involved as IET students. Jenny Juarez from LA in the child development, and Natalia Barnes, who's with in the Mount Diablo Adult Education, the IET Health Careers. So on that note, what, Jenny?
Well, I was going to say we can have people introduce themselves just briefly here. I think that would be great if we could
please
start with Paige.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paige Endo, a longtime ESL teacher, ESL coordinator, and an administrator now at Mount Diablo Adult Ed. And we've been working on IELC programs since the 243 objectives were first rolled out. And it's been a journey. And I'm happy to share some parts of that as we go along. Thank you.
Thanks, Paige. Francisco.
Hello, everyone. My name is Francisco Narciso. I'm with LA Unified Adult, part of LAUSD. I'm the IET teacher advisor, and I'm very excited to be here to share our experiences with IET with our district and our division. We've been doing IET for a while now, and I'd like to share some of my experiences and our experiences. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy that Jenny from our program is here too.
Yes, thanks, Francisco. And Jenny, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Jenny Juarez, and it's a pleasure to be part of this webinar, and I could share my experience with how was with child development in the IET. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. And Natalia, I see you've joined us.
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Natalia Barnes, and I am currently doing dental assistant in Mount Diablo, and I'm really happy to be here and share my experience.
Welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you. Welcome.
So
Peter, were you going to take this one? Great.
Yes. We wanted to start out by posing a question to the two students on the panel, which is, can you please tell us just about your career goals and what are your next steps after taking your IET classes? Please, either of you like to jump in.
I can start if you want.
Sure.
Last year I took Introduction to Healthcare Careers for ESL students, and right now I'm starting to become a dental assistant. I am planning to graduate in April next year and start working in a dental office after that.
Great, thank you. And Jenny?
Nice. I graduate from child development, and right now I'm working with my high set, which is as well in Maximum Water. I already applied for jobs in school. I'm waiting for an interview for school, starting as not as a substitute teacher, but yes, related with helping in school with parents. So I'm excited of that. And it really helped me to have the confidence to say I could do this, and I'm for sure they might hire me. Yes.
Great, thank you so much. And for the two program leads, a question related to that: what opportunities do you find that IET provides for your students? Who would like to jump in on that one? Either of you.
I could jump in. Just as you guys discussed earlier, we see IET as an equity-driven program. And the benefits and opportunities for students are a lot, but most importantly, it gives our English learners access to the career classes. I mean, everyone here, imagine how long does it take for your ESL students to get access to career classes? And if the answer is a long time, then IET can shorten that time and give students access to career classes faster. And so students like our Jenny here, who took child development, she can learn English and child development content at the same time, and this advances her towards her career goal to become a teacher. So it's really an equity-driven program.
Thank you. Paige.
I agree with everything Francisco just said. And he was talking about access, and I was thinking of the word connects. I feel like having an IET program connects students to pathways and programs beyond ESL if they're ESL students. It also, like you were saying earlier, Peter, connects them to resources, because maybe the ESL teachers and program are not familiar with some of the resources that are out there for students who are in our CTE programs, for example. And so if they're in this pathway and they get into the CTE program, now suddenly they're connected with more resources. They might have always been accessible to them or available, I should say, but they might not have known that they could access them. And there might not have been people around them to direct them in that direction. I think it provides support for them to be successful in that class. And as Jenny was just saying, it gives them confidence. We hear over and over from our students that it after going through a program, which is hard, even with support, they have confidence now to do a next thing and a next thing, And so, yeah, I think enough said, but definitely there are some good opportunities, and I'm sure there are more.
Okay, thanks. Here's a
We got-
question.
Yeah, go ahead,
Should I
Jenny.
take this one, Peter?
Yeah.
We can just go back and forth.
Yeah.
Here's a question again for Francisco and Paige. What would you say have been factors in the success of your IET programs? And maybe we'll go back to Francisco first on this one.
Thank you, Jenny. And you mentioned it before, and I want to reiterate it because it's so important, right? It's the partnership, and Paige identified resources also. And these resources sometimes are linked with a partnership. So factors to our success with our IET program is to find partnerships that can add on to our resources. As a division and as a district, we have resources, but together with partners, we have more resources. And so if we're partnering internally within our division, we have these certain district resources, but as we move outside of our district and partner with outside agencies. They provide resources that maybe we don't have. And so our students, our teachers, our classes have access to these resources. So a factor to success is resources to partnerships.
Mhm.
Excellent.
Great.
Well said, Francisco. I would also like to add that the funding, the WIOA funding itself has been helpful. We don't have the pressure. We're in this situation anyway, now that we're no longer ADA driven, but we don't have the pressure to have huge classes right away and continue. So that gives us a little bit of time. So the WIOA funding has been helpful. I think another thing is just our persistence. We just keep trying and coming back and keep trying and plugging along to make them be successful. And then, as Francisco was saying, the collaboration among programs, whether they're internal programs, for example, ESL and CTE, or external, for example, Mount Diablo Adult Ed and our local community college or our local day labor center. We have some partnerships with them as well. So that collaboration, and not just the collaboration, but the ownership. That's one of the things that I saw when we first started this. It was looked at as an ESL program. And it took a while for, and I wouldn't say we're really 100% there yet, but it's taken a while for the other programs that are partnering with the ESL program on this to take ownership of the program as well. A couple of other factors, and these also were challenges, I'll just say, but they're factors in the success, and that is getting teachers that are willing to co-teach and willing to try, and then finding the right match, the right pairing of those teachers. It kind of really boils down to the student's experience in the class, right, with the teachers. And so that is really, really important. And then I'll reiterate something that's been mentioned, but just the ongoing paid staff collaboration time to co-teach, I think it's just really important. It just needs to be built in and continue, so those are my thoughts.
That's great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I so appreciate you sharing your experiences on this. And Paige, when you talk about persistence, it makes me think of a number of comments that were shared with Peter and with me about just how much time it took for these programs to evolve and kind of come into their own and take shape, and often through quite a bit of trial and error. Sometimes programs that had been going for a few years would still talk to us with that sort of sense of it being new and fresh. And I think it's just, it doesn't always click in that very first semester. It sometimes takes a little time to form. I appreciate you pointing that out.
I just have also one follow-up question for Francisco. When you mentioned about resources from other partners, could you give a couple examples of how that really helped your program?
Yeah, so the program in particular that I want to highlight is our child development program. So we're in partnership with the mayor's office, Mayor Garcetti's office. And so what was nice was that Mayor Garcetti had a vision that aligned with our vision. And so the shared resources that the mayor's office have really helped us. And so these resources are relationship driven. So the mayor's office has connections with a lot of agencies, a lot of CBOs. And so, for example, just recently, they connected us with LACO and LA County Office of Education. And so now we're in partnership with LACO in developing pathways for students as they move towards a community college and pursuing their teaching permit.
Great, thank you.
That's a great example.
Well, we'd like to kind of pivot a little bit back to asking a question to the students. The two students is the question is, you've had two teachers, how do your teachers support you, and just how was that? I mean, in more general terms, how was it? It's unusual at first probably to have two teachers working together, right? Who would either of you like to jump in? Jenny? Yeah, go
Yes.
ahead.
Yeah, it was a first experience of having two teachers. At the beginning, I was like, maybe he's gonna be here for just observe, and then we're not gonna have him. And then I realized, oh no, he's staying. It was kind of something new, and it's good because you learn how, because every teacher give a class a different way. You know, every teacher has their own way to part the class. So you learn at the same time, you're learning two types of ways how to impart class. You learn how to dissolve if an issue, you know, like if a teacher is not there, how the other teacher is gonna develop by himself. So that's an experience that you can learn for you as a future teacher. You will learn how to do that. And also it helps a lot when you're in there to make sure that you are getting the right learning, you know, double check. You have one to here, let's go and verify it. And yeah, that helps a lot. And both of them have their own way to teach and help. You know, like one will help me with my writing or verify if my writing is right. The other one will help me to see if I have the structure the right way. And it's good because you don't have to waste time searching for another help or backup outside. So you have it in there, you can resolve it at the same moment. And they also help us to like make sure that you have understanding everything and both work at the same way. So that's what for me was a nice experience having two teachers in there, and I learned a lot. This program was awesome. Yes.
Well,
Fabulous.
and Jenny, we have a question in the little chat box here. Were your two teachers in the classroom together, or did you have two separate classes with them? Were they in the room together all the time?
They were in the room together all the time.
Okay.
Yes. So that was cool. Yeah, like I'm telling you, we all, both of them, students are all on the same page. It helps.
How fantastic. And Natalia, how was it for you having two teachers?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a different at the beginning, but I have to say that it was a wonderful experience having both them for me. And they were very helpful. They were very encouraged me of continue and pursuing a healthcare career. And what I liked the most and I found very helpful was having one teacher helping me with pronunciation, grammar, things related to English, because we were learning vocabulary that was not like we use every day. And the other teacher was showing us images, videos, and make the class more interesting. And they also helped me because when I started the ESL class, I wanted to study something then I can work right away, but I was lost. I didn't know where to go. What can I do to enroll to school? If since I am from a different country, if I can do something like that. So they both helped me. They took me to the office, showed me all the documents and things that I can do. And so that was very, very helpful. And they gave me a lot of confidence because I was very scared to go and study something that was not related to English because I was not feeling, maybe it's because I have an accent, then, I won't be able to study something else besides English. But they helped me a lot. And then that's when I made the decisions to become a dental assistant.
Very cool.
That's a great story. Confidence has a lot to do with it. I know. And Jenny, it's so interesting that you pointed out that as someone studying to become a teacher, it helps you to see teachers collaborating. I hadn't thought about just how relevant that is in early childhood education, because teachers do co-teach in early childhood education. In a preschool classroom, they're co-teaching, but so often in our work environments, we're collaborating in different ways. And to see that happening in a classroom, it seems like a great model. I really appreciate you pointing that out. So interesting. Okay, our next question here. Here we have a version for staff and a version for students, but both of these are around challenges. So for staff, and I think I'll ask Paige this first, what has been challenging about launching or implementing IET?
You know, when I was thinking of this question, I thought I could start with, you know, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways, you know, that. And I was thinking, what are the challenges? Let me count the ways. But actually, you know, there's, it's not all challenge and it's not all success, right? It's a combination of both as you're going along. I think one of the challenging things is one of the things that's successful also is trying to find the teacher. One, you're looking for two teachers, and as you know, these days, staffing is hard to come by anyway. You know, we're definitely short on staff, teachers and instructional assistants, and even in the last, you know, few years before there was a staffing challenge, trying to find someone who was willing to do it, who had the right credential and all of that can be challenging about implementing. I think it's also challenging so I mentioned last time about how the programs are beginning to take more ownership of these this IET class that's, you know, a collaboration between more than one program area. But getting that commitment, you know, getting them, you know, sometimes the programs, for example, have different priorities. And so if one of the teachers, if we're sharing a teacher, for example, and the need is strong and the priority of that program is strong, and they say, we need this teacher, then suddenly we're without the teacher that we were counting on, you know, for the program. So sometimes the competing priorities of programs, neither one is more important or wrong, but it's just a competing priorities. And then, you know, early on when we were first gaining traction with this particular IET program, which is the Intro to Health Careers, we had the ESL term start date, end date, and length were different from the term for the other program area. And that's also been true actually of our collaboration with our local community college. But, you know, getting the two teachers and the classes and the timing to work for the students, so that if the students finish one thing and they're ready to start the next program, you know, to get into the IELCE class, and then that class already started 2 weeks ago because of the timing, you know, so just working out calendar differences was one thing. And then one other thing, and this is just on the not so much about launching it or implementing it, it's a part of the implementation, I guess, or down the road implementation. So we finally had this class going. We were so thrilled. It was a small class. It was the first one before Natalia. It started on Zoom, and we get to the point where, okay, you guys are finished and now you can transition. And then we realized that even the teachers didn't know how to follow the transition steps to get into the next program, even though it's our own agency. And the students, you know, were struggling. So the teachers tried to help, and then the teachers couldn't understand it. So that actually led to some good things though, right? We realized we need to simplify and organize the steps of transition, which we didn't realize was a problem before. So something that was challenging actually turned into be a growth, you know, a good growth thing for us. Those are a few ideas anyway.
Thank you. Those are fabulous.
Yeah. Well, and Francisco, any challenges to share?
Oh, there are a lot of challenges, but I'm just going to limit it to two ideas. And the first idea, I'm going to agree with Paige that finding the right teachers are a challenge. And the principal over at Maxine Waters, where our student Jenny is at, she calls it the marriage of teachers. And she says that she's like the Cupid, right? She finds the right teachers to match together. And if we don't find that right match, then the students see it. And I know, Jenny, when you learn from Miss Johnson and Mr. David, that you could see the collaboration between the two teachers as they help you and the other students. You know, that was a good match. But so the challenge is finding that good match with the limited number of teachers that we have available, right? Right now, there's a teacher shortage. And so we don't have very many choices. And so we cross our fingers and hope that the limited teachers that we have available are going to be a good match. Now, talking about a good match is the other challenge. When we work with other agencies, you know, our division, we have a vision and we have a mission that really aligns to who we are and how we do things. And when we partner with other agencies, especially if they're outside of our district, sometimes they do things a little differently, right? They have different norms. Sometimes they move a little faster, or sometimes they move a little slower. And so the challenge is, you know, how could we partner together with these differences? And so what's helped us a lot is immediately when we find a partner, creating a shared vision. And you know, the shared vision is always around students and student-centered, and trying to get the students along a pathway to work. And that usually helps when we have some challenges or conflicts in norms and the way we do things.
Could I just ask a quick follow-up question, which is, you know, following your analogy, Francisco, about this being a marriage, do you find as program administrators or maybe other staff that you have some kind of ongoing marriage counseling when issues arise? You know,
Yeah.
have you had that experience?
I've had that experience, and because with LAUSD, I'm the trainer of IET teachers, you know, so whenever a teacher gets assigned an IET class or program, they come to me first. And so I'm sort of like the trainer, the counselor, the marriage, the Cupid. And so a lot of times they'll come to me, or even the administrator will come to me and say, hey, Francisco, you know, we need some help. You know, and so I do become sometimes the marriage counselor between teachers, and which is fine, because my approach has always been, you know, when counseling or helping out teachers, it's always been around that shared vision. Again, right? We're helping students, and why were you chosen to be a teacher in this program? What are your strengths? And then, you know, how does that contribute to the shared vision? And so focusing on that a lot of times helps out. And when it doesn't, then it's just the listening ear, right?
Yeah.
How interesting that you become that marriage counselor, because Francisco, I think in all our work on this topic, you're the only one we've found who has IET in your job description. You are like an IET marriage counselor. And I think so often the people running these programs don't have that in their job title. It's just one of many, many, many things. And sometimes hard to kind of create the space to understand what needs to be done, or to dedicate the focus on that. That's wonderful to hear you describe your role. Well, let's have this student question. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that although we haven't been running it lately at our school, we did have an internal transitions team that we were that we had. But we have another IET program, it's an early childhood education one that goes to, starts at the adult school and goes to the community college. And we started that long before the 243 funds became available. And we have a steering committee or an advisory committee that's made up of staff from Mount Diablo Adult Ed, as well as the community college, as well as the teachers, the adult ed teacher and the linked ESL and ECE teacher from over there. And we meet monthly, and we've been meeting monthly for 10 plus years now, you know, and I think that has helped us tremendously, because we we've developed a lot of trust over the years, even though individuals may leave, that infrastructure is still there. So when funding issues come up or other kinds of challenges come up, you know, we're able to address it within that committee to continue to support the program. So I just want to mention that having either a marriage counselor like Francisco or some kind of a committee, even if it's just a small little committee that, you know, continues to support behind the scenes, can be really helpful. And that's one of our successes for our other program, one of the pieces of support for the other program. May I say one more thing just
Of
about
course.
the challenge of launching? And that is, you know, I mentioned a minute ago about different program area priorities, but also sometimes within our own program, ESL program area, we have limited number of teachers and we have a lot of students coming in. Right now it's fall, so we're doing registration. And within the first couple of days, most of our classes were full and we still have people coming in and coming in. Sometimes it's hard to, especially when you are launching and implementing your program, you know, it takes time once you've planted the seeds. Sorry, my walkie-talkie, I forgot to turn it off. When you plant the seed for your IET class or program, it takes time for it to develop roots and for it to grow and bear fruit. And so it might be small and it might have its ups and downs. And in the meantime, you're using perhaps an experienced ESL teacher that's dedicated to that IET class that you don't have to take students off your waiting list, for example, you know, or you don't have an extra classroom because you've dedicated that classroom to let this class grow. So that wait time and that, I mean, that's a hard thing sometimes, you know, because you see students that need to be in class and you have a teacher, but you're dedicating this and waiting for this to you know, grow. So I just wanted to say that can also be a challenge in implementing and getting it going and maintaining it.
Yeah. Yes, quite a few challenges named. But before we leave this challenge slide, I want to ask our students, let's ask Natalia and then Jenny, what for you has been challenging about being in this program?
I would say learning the new words in English that we don't use on like a daily basis. That has been a challenge, but it has given me more confidence when I speak. And I would say Introduction to Healthcare Career class really helped me to transition to dental assistant.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you so much. And Jenny.
For me, it might be like when I was studying, I used to work at the same time and go to school, and I'm a mom. So that was a challenge. And it's not easy for you to reach your goal. You need to sacrifice. Sometimes you need to sacrifice time because otherwise you can have two glories at the same time. If you want to reach something, you need to always leave behind or low in something so you could reach your goal. And this program, honestly, it helps a lot to progress and have good jobs, you know, like in future, you will have your reward. Once you see your time, your sacrifices, your everything that you do for it, at the end, you will see it. But yeah, it did help a lot on my as well. Like Natalia said, when I went to school, I was like, what are they talking? New words for my language. Yeah, so I was like, wow, those are high like high quality, but I did learn a lot. Like I'm saying, now I am waiting for an interview, and I'm here, like right now they told me, are you gonna talk? I was like, it would be back before going to school. I would be like, oh no, I'm afraid. I don't feel confident. But now, because of this class, it helps you a lot to be confident by your own, make sure what you're gonna be, talk, and it helps a lot. And I'm waiting for an interview, and I feel the same. I feel sure, confident, and honestly, these programs help us for be better in the future. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a big challenge, saying you want this or you want this. It's kind of like I did have support from both teachers and my husband to reach my goal, and it was hard. I was like about to quit, like saying I can't hard. But once you're in there, the good thing of this is that it's not 2 years, it's not 3 years, it's just a couple months, or it doesn't take that long for you to reach what you want to end. So that helps you to say it's not forever. You just have to do it for a couple months or for a couple times, and you will get it. And yeah, I'm glad that I did it. I waiting for an interview, like I said, and my permit as well. I'm waiting for that to come. But for these programs, I honestly, I'm so thankful for this type of programs that they help a lot.
I hope you haven't lost too much sleep. It sounds like that's what's getting sacrificed.
Yes.
Oh, but you two are amazing. Look at you speaking in front of these 80 people here. You both seem very, very confident. So yeah, really good job. I'm going to go to the next slide. Yeah.
So to kind of change up a little bit, to ask the two staff on this call, how did you determine which IET classes to offer? What was the process? If you could speak to that a little bit, please. Francisco, you want to start on this one?
Thank you, Peter. So multiple ways, right? But two I'll talk about. When we're starting an IET program within a school, usually, again, we start with a student. We go to our ESL students and we survey them. And we start with our level intermediate low students and we survey them. These are the CTE classes available in this school. What are you interested in? And sometimes that helps us guide what classes we offer. In addition to that, what kind of resources do we have? And Paige talked about earlier, teacher resources and being able to spare a teacher from one program to go to another program. That helps out too. That's one way we determine the IET classes. Now, another way is a partner coming to us and they say, hey, we have this training program and there's a lot of people interested in it, but they need the English support. Can you help us? And so in that situation, it's already come to us with a need and the class is already determined, and we just now need to find an ESL teacher for that class. So surveys within our schools or partners that come to us already with a idea of an IET class.
Excellent, thank you. And Paige.
So we also have the experience of a partner coming to us, and actually it was Catholic Charities of the East Bay who received a grant, and then they married, if you will, Mount Diablo Adult Education and Diablo Valley College together for our early childhood education pathway. For the in-house ones, it's kind of two-pronged, I would say. One is we want to see, what programs do we have that students could transition to with support that we can do right here. And we have, I can't remember right off the top of my head, but at least I think 4 or 5 different medical programs. They're all in allied health careers. So we've got EMT, we have medical assistant, we have dental assistant, we have a CNA program, and that might be all. I might be missing one. So, oh, surgical technologist. So we thought if we had a general class that taught about the systems that could support ESL students to kind of make that leap, that might be a good thing. We also have feedback from those programs when we do have a non-native English speaker in their classes, what kinds of things are challenging for them. And so those are some of the little ingredients that went into us choosing to do Intro to Health Careers. We have these 5 pathways right here within our own agency, and we wanted to make a way, a supported way for students to be able to get in. I think we still are looking at ways that we can provide continuing IET to support them once they're in the programs, but we haven't been able to bite off that part of the process yet. But so those are a couple of ways that we have that have helped us decide how
Thank
to
you.
choose. Mm-hmm.
And Jenny, I think we might want to skip the next 2 questions that we've kind of addressed already.
Yeah, I want to
Uh,
make sure we have time for Q&A. I'm
Right.
curious whether Francisco has an answer to this one, though.
Okay. Oh, right. Wait.
Did we give
Yeah,
Francisco a chance?
yeah, he already spoke.
Yeah,
Oh, you
Thank
did?
you.
Okay,
Thank
that's
you,
right. We're
Jenny.
still on this slide. Let's
I think we should jump to the asking the students, how did you hear about this program?
okay.
I think we should hop right over because we've kind of,
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, good. Yes, how did you hear about this class? Jenny, do you want to start on this one?
Yeah, sure. I heard from it because I took my ESL in Max and Water,
Mm,
which was a pretty good. I had a good experience with the teacher. She's such a good teacher, and I had my counselor in there, and she mentioned it. She was like, "What are your plans now? What are you going to do now?" And I'm like, "Well, I want to work with my HiSET." And she was like, "Okay, that's good." And I enrolled to the HiSET. Once I was there, and then she mentioned it again. This program is here again, because when she told me, I was like, let me think about it. I will think about it. And time went fast. Time runs fast. And when I saw there were months in the middle of the month. So she was like, "Oh, this class is about to finish. You have to wait." I was like, "Okay." So then she mentioned it again. She's like, "The class is about to start again. Are you interested now?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Let's try it." I never thought it was gonna be like. I thought it was just gonna be like going to class and this and that, but no, it ended to be like you are a real teacher, like starting to do work for students and this and that. And I was like, "Oh," but that's the way that I heard it about it. And yes, I was, like I said, I'm still working on my HiSET because it was a lot for me. Work, going to school in person. They have in Zoom, but I prefer in person, because for me, my experience, you learn more. It's like you feel more confidence of what you're learning, and it helps more. So, and I was also making my homework and working and giving time to my kids. So I was like, it's a lot. So I lowered in my HiSET. Now I'm gonna start working on my HiSET, and I got this. But yes,
Great.
I heard about it.
Okay. And Natalia, I know we're keeping you from your class. Do you have time to answer one more question?
Yes, don't worry.
Okay.
I'm actually a kind of person who reads everything that gets in the mail. So I know a lot of people just throw it away. And I am glad I'm that kind of person, because I found about the program from this catalog
You
that
got
comes in the mail.
All right.
I was like desperate because I didn't know what to do with my life. And I would just start looking at the pages, and I found the Introduction to Healthcare Careers for ESL, and I was like, oh, that's perfect. So that was like a sign from God. And then I'm here doing the assistant. So yeah, that's how I find out about it.
Okay,
That's
great.
great. Thank you.
We had the question for staff too, but we only have 10 minutes left on our time together today, and I want to make sure that we invite questions.
Yes.
And I see it looks like we have a question from Jose that we might want to just pause and look at now. I'd
Right.
also like to encourage anyone else with questions for our panelists, for Peter and myself. Please share in the chat and we'll see what we can cover that really addresses your questions in the next few minutes.
Mhm.
Let's look at Jose's here. Do the partners help incentivize the program for the students or their employees? So it sounds like the question here is about perhaps employer partners who help incentivize or promote perhaps the program for their employees, or other partners who help. I think that would be the question, Jose. You can feel free to write a clarifying question if I'm not quite getting it, but I think, are they incentivizing or promoting the programs in any way?
So I can just tell you that when we were first approached by Catholic Charities at the East Bay for our ECE pathway, because they had this grant, they did incentivize. They incentivized the students. They provided free childcare. They gave a monthly stipend for good attendance.
Wow.
They paid for the textbooks. And then they also provided case management, so I don't know if that was an incentive to the students, but it was a super important resource that they provided. But there were monetary incentives, yes, to start. And then over time, the grant went away and we no longer had those incentives to offer, but luckily and happily, the program continues.
Francisco, do you have anything to add on that question?
Yeah, so the biggest incentive that our students are interested in is job placement. And so our partners happen to be well connected with different hiring organizations in the community, specifically in the hospitality industry. And so when we promote and market to students, through flyers and through different workforce centers, one of our points in marketing is, hey, get a job, and so our partner has a pretty high placement rate for jobs.
Yeah, great.
And I just will mention real quickly that in our Intro to Health Careers pathway, all of our allied health career programs have externships as part of the program, and they have an externship coordinator that we also have a high rate of placement. So I don't know that it's an incentive to start for students because they may not be aware of that end piece, but certainly once they're in the program, they know about that. So that's a good point, Francisco.
Any other questions?
Please.
Please put questions in the chat if you have any. We have just a few more minutes here. Or if any of our panelists have questions for each other, we always like to encourage that. Peter and I often get to ask the follow-up questions, but feel free, Francisco.
Paige, I have a question for you because we're working on the same. Right now, we're working on that articulation into the community colleges as it relates to child development. I don't have 10 years, the 10 years that you had to develop this. So give me the cliff notes, please. How is that articulation from the adult school to the community colleges? And was there any challenges to creating that articulation? And what's that secret sauce that gets that articulation going?
Well, I have to confess that really it was the partner, that CBO, the Community-Based Organization of Catholic Charities, that brought the two entities together. We don't have an articulation in the sense that our students don't get credit for the classes that they take here. but the program does go as a cohort. And the steering committee is comprised of, or at least used to be, or it still is, the director of the, or one of the main people of the early childhood education program over there. So that person is integral always in looking at what classes are being offered and what sequence the students have to take the classes, so that as they go in, they always know, the steering committee always knows ahead of time, okay, this is being offered in the fall, this is where they'll start, that kind of thing. We do have some articulation agreements with some of the community colleges for some other programs like EMT, that kind of thing. But for this one, it's really more that pathway. And it's evolved over time. The community colleges used to have a certain entrance exam that, assessment that the ESL students had to take. I think it was Accuplacer. They've now done away with that. So it evolves, but I'm happy to talk with you more offline if I can be of any help.
Thanks, Paige.
Sure.
Thanks, Paige, and thanks for the question, Francisco. I think now we're going to need to hand it back to Renee at Cape Tap, because we've just about reached the end of our time. Peter, did you have anything else to wrap up on our end?
I just really want to thank all the panelists for taking the time. As we hoped, and it's really been true, I just really appreciate your willingness to share your experience. It's been really valuable, I think, as a part of this presentation. So thank you. And I wish both of the students great success in what you're pursuing.
Yes,
Thank
I'll
you.
second that. Good luck to you all. And thank you all for, like we expected, kind of bringing alive the themes that we point out in our brief. That I think there's some issues and challenges across the state, but a lot of success stories, and certainly hearing your stories, Jenny and Natalia, really make that so clear that it's worth the effort to make these programs strong. And with that, I think we'll hand it back to you, Renee, if you want to do some closing remarks here. I think Renee is still here. Or we can say a few words on this one.
I think you're on mute.
There you go.
Okay.
It was taking me a second to get off of mute, but
Okay.
I just wanted to just kind of echo Peter and Jenny's thanks to our panelists, Francisco and Paige. The determination and perseverance that you have demonstrated and shared with us today to have your IET programs up and running and having the success that they do for Natalia and Jenny and all of the other students that benefit from them. That's fantastic. And I appreciate you being here to share about it with us and really kind of bringing the voices of the field that are in the report to life, through this panel. So thank you so much. I do want to encourage all of you, please, there is so much more detail and information and idea generation in the CAP brief on the IET Voices for the Field. So please take some time to go through that. You may want to chunk out some time over the course of a week. I know sometimes, it's not too long, but sometimes it can get a little overwhelming when it's more than a couple pages. So, but do take the time. It's really quite good. And I did want to point out that if you're interested in getting into IET and would like more specific instruction on how to go about it, CalPro is offering an online IET implementation clinic this fall, and I believe that they have an open registration going on right now. And also Links has a webinar on designing IET programs, and I believe that Amanda Lee has just put that link into the chat for you. So make sure to pick it up there if that's of interest to you. Links is our at the federal level technical assistance for adult education. And so that would be of great importance as well. So with that, I just want to thank everybody for sticking with us for the hour and a half. It's been a great, it's been a great webinar that we've been able to host for you today. Thank you again to our panelists. Thank you again to all of our participants for being here. We'll see you at our next CAP webinar. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.